Hello everyone. In this lesson, we are going to learn about special limits. So here, we will be illustrating the limits involving the expression sine t over t, 1 minus cosine t over t, and e to the t minus 1 over t, using a table of values. Okay? So itong tatlong expressions na nakikita natin ay tinatawag na special functions. And ano yung mga special limits? So we have here the three special limits. Okay, so we have limit of sine t over t as t approaches 0, limit of 1 minus cosine t over t as t approaches 0, and the limit of e to the t minus 1 over t as t approaches 0. Now, from our previous lesson, if we are given with a transcendental function, specifically the exponential, logarithmic, and trigonometric function, we can just do direct substitution in evaluating the limit of those functions, right? So in this case, let us try to evaluate the limit by direct substitution. So we will have sine of 0 over 0, right? And this will now be equal to sine 0 is 0, so 0 over 0. So we have obtained an indeterminate form. Next, for the second one, we will have 1 minus cosine 0 over 0. Cosine 0 is 1, so we have 1 minus 1 over 0 equal to 0 over 0. Again, we have obtained an indeterminate form. Next, we have e to the 0 minus 1 over 0. So we have 1 minus 1 over 0 equal to 0 over 0. Another indeterminate form. And take note, a limit that is indeterminate of type 0 over 0 may exist. And we commonly solve that one by factoring or by rationalizing. However, in this case, the three special functions are already in simplest form. So we cannot factor this one nor rationalize. So therefore, in this case, how are we going to investigate the limit of these functions? So one option is by table of values, and another one is through the graph of the given function. So let us try to investigate the limit of the following functions here through table of values and their graphs. So first, we will have the limit of sine t over t as t approaches 0. So constructing the table of values, we will consider values close to 0 from the left. So we have these values. Ayan. So as your t approaches 0 from the left, the values of the function approaches to 1, right? So from that, we can say that the limit of sine t over t as t approaches 0 from the left is equal to 1. And take note, t here are angles. And since we have no unit of measurement, it is understood that all values here are in radian measure. So if you are using your scientific calculator, make sure to set your calculators in radian measure. The default um the default setup of the calculator is in degree measure. So you need to change that one. Okay, so one way is by clicking shift then mode. Then hanapin nyo yung radian. Okay, so si radian, I think that is number 4. You click that one and change na yung setup ng calculator nyo. Okay, now from the right, we have this one. So we have these values. And the corresponding values of the function, we have this. So as you can see, as your t approaches 0 from the right, the values of the function approaches 1. So therefore, we say that the limit of sine t over t as t approaches 0 from the right is also equal to 1. So from that, we can say that the limit of sine t over t as t approaches 0 is equal to 1. So please take note of this formula. Okay, so the graph of the function it looks like this one. So there is a hollow point at t equal to 0 because when you substitute t equal to 0 to the function, the answer will be indeterminate. Therefore, t is not included in the domain of the function. However, the limit still exists, so you can clearly see it in the graph. So the left side of the graph approaches 1 and the right side also approaches 1. So the limit of sine t over t as t approaches 0 is equal to 1. Okay? Now, the second one, limit of 1 minus cosine t over t as t approaches 0. So we will have from the left, so the same values of t, and we will have the corresponding values of the function. So as you can see, it approaches 0. So we will conclude that the limit of 1 minus cosine t over t as t approaches 0 from the left is equal to 0. Now from the right, we have these values again, and the corresponding values of the function, we have this, and it approaches, so the values approach 0, right? So therefore, the limit of 1 minus cosine t over t as t approaches 0 from the right is equal to 0. And since they are both equal to 0, we say that the limit of 1 minus cosine t over t as t approaches 0 is equal to 0. Okay, so please take note of this formula. And we have the graph of the function here. So there is again a hollow point at t equal to 0 because again, indeterminate yung result if we are going to substitute the value of t equal to 0 to the function. However, the limit still exists. So makikita naman siguro na the same yung pinupuntahan ng left side at right side ng graph. Okay? So that's it. Now, for the third one, limit of e to the t minus 1 over t as t approaches 0. So from the left of 0, we will have these values. And the values of the function approaches to 1. So makikita natin dyan. So therefore, we will have the limit of e to the t minus 1 over t as t approaches 0 is equal, from the left, is equal to 1. Now, how about from the right? So we have these values of t and the values of the function approach 0. 1 pala. So therefore, the right-hand limit is equal to 1. Therefore, we say that the limit of e to the t minus 1 over t as t approaches 0 is equal to 1. So please take note of this formula. And the graph of the function looks like this one. So makikita natin yung hollow point at t equal to 0 and the limit is equal to 1. Okay? So let's recall the three special limits. We have the values. For limit of sine t over t as t approaches 0 is equal to 1. Limit of 1 minus cosine t over t as t approaches 0 is equal to 0. And the limit of e to the t minus 1 over t as t approaches 0 is equal to 1. Okay? This equality will always hold if ganito siya. If kung ano yung variable dito sa sign, so t, dapat yun rin yung nasa denominator. If that's the case, the answer will always be equal to 1. Okay? Next, for cosine, kung ano naman yung angle dito sa cosine, dapat yun rin yung nasa denominator. If that's the case, the answer is always 0. And for e to the t minus 1 over t, kung ano yung exponent dito, dapat yun rin yung nasa denominator. Okay? And the answer will always be equal to 1. So these are the steps in solving problems or limits involving special limits. So first, you need to check if the limit will lead to 0 over 0, because if hindi siya 0 over 0, then that will be the value of the limit, right? So that's the first step. The second step is to manipulate the expression, obtaining the expression sine t over t, 1 minus cosine t over t, and e to the t minus 1 over t, so that we can apply these values. Okay? So dapat kung ano yung nasa numerator, yun rin yung nasa denominator. Then the last step is to apply the limit laws that we know and the values of the special limit. So, i-apply na natin yung 1, 0, at 1. Okay? So, para mas maintindihan, let's consider the following example. We have to evaluate the given limits. So, for letter A, we have the limit of sine of 2t over t as t approaches 0. First step is to check if this will lead to 0 over 0. So for letter A, we have sine of 2 times 0 over 0, right? And take note, 2 times 0 is 0. So sine 0 is equal to 0 over 0. So we have an indeterminate form. So check C, first step. Second step is to manipulate. So dapat kung ano yung nasa numerator or yung angle na nasa sine, dapat yun rin yung nasa baba. Right? So we have 2t here. So dapat yung nasa baba, 2t rin. Yeah, right? So in that case, what are we going to do para maging magkapareho yung nasa taas at nasa baba? Now, it is easier if we are going to change the denominator than changing the numerator. Kasi itong nasa numerator, angle ito. Right? Now, if we are going to multiply something, ang imo-multiply natin ay yung whole function kasama si sine. So, mahihirapan tayong i-change yung numerator. However, dito sa denominator, mas madali siya kasi si t lang yung nandun. Para maging 2t siya, we just need to multiply 2 to the value of t, right? Or 2 times t. So we will have 2t, right? So in that case, we will just multiply 2t to our denominator, and whatever you multiplied in the denominator, you should multiply it also to the numerator. No, 2 lang pala. Okay? So we will multiply 2 para maging 2t yung t natin. So from that, we will have the limit of 2 times sine 2t. We will have 2 sine 2t. Because again, we are multiplying 2 to the whole function, right? Over 2 times t, we will have 2t as t approaches 0. Okay? Next, wag yung ika-cancel si 2 kasi babalik yan sa original. Okay? So we will apply the limit laws that we know. Since 2 here is a numerical coefficient, we can factor that out. So we will have 2 times the limit of sine 2t over 2t as t approaches 0. And we will have 2 times, since this one is already of the form sine t over t, magkapareho na yung nandito sa taas at nasa baba, then we can apply this formula, and that is equal to 1. So we have 2 as our final answer. Okay? Now for letter B, so there, limit of 1 minus cosine 3t over 2t as t approaches 0. So we need to check if this will lead to 0 over 0. So for letter B, we will have 1 minus cosine of 3 times 0 over 2 times 0. Now, 3 times 0 is 0, so cosine 0 is 1. So, 1 minus 1 is equal to 0 over 2 times 0 equal to 0. So, 0 over 0 siya. So, there's no problem. Let's proceed to the second step. We need to change this one Dapat magkapareho ang dalawa. So in this case, sa denominator ulit tayo mag-change. Dapat maging 3t ito. So what should be multiplied to this function so that magiging 3t itong nasa denominator. So in that case, we can multiply 3 over 2, right? Kasi 2 times 3 over 2 is 3. So ang matitira is 3t na dito. Okay? Whatever you multiplied here, you should multiply it sa taas also. So what's left now is we have limit of 3 halves times numerator, i-multiply nyo, 1 minus cosine 3t over 2t times 3 over 2 is just 3t as t approaches 0. Now, applying the limit loss, we will factor out 3 halves. So we have 3 halves, limit of 1 minus cosine 3t over 3t as t approaches 0. So we will have 3 halves times, this one is already of the form ito, right? And that is equal to 0. So you have times 0, so equal to 0. So for number 2 or letter B, the answer is 0. Okay, now let's try letter C. Limit of e to the 5t squared minus 1 over t squared as t approaches 0. So let's try to check if this will lead to indeterminate form. So we will have e to the 5 minus 0 squared minus 1 over 0 squared. So we will have e to the 0 is 1 minus 1, you have 0 over 0 squared is 0. So indeterminate ulit siya, so we will do manipulations na. So in this case, dapat magiging 5t squared yung nasa baba. So therefore, we will multiply 5 sa baba and multiply it also sa taas. So we will have the limit of 5 times e to the 5t squared minus 1 over 5t squared as t approaches 0. And we can factor out 5, so we will have 5 limit of e to the 5t squared minus 1 over 5t squared as t approaches 0. And we will have 5 times, this one is of the form the third special limit. So we will have 5 times 1 equal to 5. So that's it. So ganun lang yung gagawin natin. First, you need to check if the limit will lead to 0 over 0. Then we will do manipulation. Dapat yung nasa taas ay the same sa baba. Then third, we will apply the limit loss and the values of the special limits. So that ends our lesson for this topic, special limits. Thank you for watching.